Hello and welcome. Today I am trying out oil pastels. I have tried these before and it failed miserably. I gave it like a 30-minute shot and then I was like, nope, these are not for me. And then they sat in my closet for about 7 months. And for some reason, out of the blue, I was like, today's the day. My goal with this page specifically is to just get used to how they work and practice, and then hopefully I get comfortable enough to draw something really cool. I think where I went wrong the first time was that I treated them like crayons, and they're not. They are kind of for like the first layer, but then once you start layering them on top of each other, they do not behave like crayons. That's where I feel like the oilness comes into play. My goal with this alpaca is just to get used to how the colors blend together, so I'm keeping it very simple to try to give myself the best shot at success here so that I don't absolutely rage quit and put them in the closet for another 7 months. Okay, I can tell that finding the sharpest point is going to be the most challenging thing. I don't know if these were meant for very precise control. I think they were meant more for like not. So I don't know if I'm digging myself a hole here by having high hopes with some fine lines here. So I'm learning that you can actually layer quite a bit with oil pastels, and that really surprises me. And it's not like it's going into the paper, so you're not like gonna ruin your paper by adding more and more colors the same way that you would with like marker. So I'm feeling really excited. And I'm having so much fun because it feels really like slimy. Like it feels really cool to use, and it's just really satisfying. Oh, and I did find that the gunk kind of stuff that flakes off of the pastel, a washcloth works really well to get that off, because if you use your hand to like slide it away like you would pencil shavings, you get the color streaks, and those are hard to get off. You can't erase. So I guess you can't get them off. Not that they're hard, it's impossible. So this next one, I envisioned this frog that was just basking in life, laying in like a field and just is sprawled out, kind of has like his hand on his belly and his feet are all relaxed by his you know, where legs go. And as I draw him, I'm realizing more and more how completely dead and lifeless he looks. So as I was drawing him, I was in immediate panic mode and I was like, how do I get this guy to not look dead? So I decided to give him eyes, and then I was like, if I really, really go for like blushy cheeks, hopefully he looks more alive. And now that it's been a minute since I've drawn this, I actually really like his face. And his bottom leg that's facing us is like, it's the best like hip area that I think I've ever drawn, and I love it so much. But at the time, I took this as a complete loss and I was like, nope, I'm done. Smell you later. But I still felt like there was something there and I wasn't ready to truly give up. So for some reason, I decided to go even more complicated, and I thought, how would it look if I just throw every color layered on top of each other and completely ignored pretty much everything that I've just learned? And I hate it. I straight up hate it. So I turned my camera off and I was like, I cannot post this, especially after I thought the frog was a fail. I'm just gonna have this be just a really stupid thing that's in my sketchbook just for me, so I can hide my failure. And then I drew the hair, and then I finished out the face, and I was like, okay, this actually doesn't look, I mean, come on, she's actually kind of cute. And then I finished it and I was like, no, this is What was I thinking? This is absolutely terrible. But I had a lot of fun, and I did learn the limits of exactly how much you can layer and how you should layer and should not layer. And I decided to leave this in the video because that's part of art, is failure, or what you consider failure. I don't know. Somebody out there might absolutely love her. So, if this is you, hi. So I have a clear idea of how I want to move forward, and I found this really awesome reference photo, and what drew me to this picture specifically was all the faint colors that you can see in her face. You can see blues in the shadows, pinks, and a lot of yellow, and I really wanted to play off of that and see what I could do, and I decided that the best move forward with oil pastels is to color block everything. I didn't go in with a sketch at all, and it does show, but I was really just excited to try out the colors and, just get in there. I wasn't exactly sure what was happening or what my plan was, other than just color blocking. I thought that maybe I would do like a back and forth motion between the two colors that were closest to each other and then blend them out that way, kind of like how you do with alcohol markers. So that was my plan. That actually doesn't end up being the way that I blend these colors, and what I found is actually way cooler in my opinion, although it does have some drawbacks. After I finished drawing these eyes, I feel like she came to life, and I could see the magic happening, and it just gave me that much more encouragement to continue. Somehow, this is also when I start seeing colors that I hadn't seen before, like the purples and the shadows around her eyes and nose, which actually ends up being my absolute favorite, like, minuscule moment within her face. Now I tried to use this white to lighten up her nose a little bit, and then what I noticed was that it was blending like super, super smooth. And this is what I was alluding to before, so I end up doing this blending method for her whole face. And for her, it actually really works because her tones are so light and very like ethereal. So the white mixed in with the colors actually works in her favor. But I just love how smooth it looks. I mean, I love how scratchy the pastels can look on their own without being blended this way, but this way is like, oh my gosh, it's next level. This ear is too high and I need to bring it down. So let's see how forgiving these are when we make mistakes like that. Now I'm just using my favorite light green and using that to create the ear down here. And then it's gonna be easy to cover up the top part of her ear just with more hair. Remember how I said that her sketch is super wonky? So I'm looking at her from under the camera so that I can see the tip of the pastel touching the paper and I know exactly where I'm drawing. But unfortunately, that means that I'm looking at her and making her head way longer than it should be. And I'm finally noticing that now, and I'm trying to fix her mouth and make it more appropriate on her body. So yeah, I don't know what I was thinking about making the top of her head so square on the right side. I have nothing. I have no excuses. I was a total airhead who made a square head. I was a little bit too nervous to go in super dark on her face shadow from the very beginning, so I ended up going with that lighter tan, maybe like darker tan color, instead of the dark green like I wanted to. And I always thought, okay, well, if I want to go darker, I can. Now, I have said already that you can kind of adjust the colors and you can layer on really well. You can. However, it does change the texture of what's happening, and it's like it can accept more layers, but it's almost like if the first layer will accept 10 pixels, the second layer will accept 9 pixels. So the more layers you put on, I'm finding, the more odd the texture ends up looking, more oily. And I mean, if you're going for that, that's cool. And maybe I'm just not used to them enough to know how to mitigate that. But here she is. This pink is too bright for a background. I want it to be more muted like she is. So this is a very like corally color. Also, speaking of coral, my next portrait is Rick Grimes. So stick around. He turns out really, really cool, and I'm very excited to show you. So I decide to give these guys some bubbles just to tie the pages together a little bit, and it does work. I also wanted the pages to not stick together and like leave the residue on the other page when I shut it. So I put this piece of parchment paper down, and that totally helps. Okay, so this next one is Andrew Lincoln, and this is very clearly Rick Grimes because of his hair and his stubble, and he very clearly has a southern accent in this picture, and you can't really tell me otherwise. I also tried to learn from my last portrait that I draw faces really wide when I'm not focusing, so I focused really hard and I thinned out the face, and I mean, his proportions are much better than the last one, and I'm very, very excited about that. The colors that I end up doing stick with me. I guess I made a choice without realizing. Nevertheless, I start this one off by color blocking again, and because I really like how it turned out the first time, and I want to try something a little bit different and not have it be so ethereal. I mean, his colors are a lot more bold than the girl's was, so I want to lean into that. I want to be a lot more courageous with the colors that I'm choosing, so I think at this point you can kind of tell by the way that I'm saying this that I'm trying to let you down easy at the colors that I chose. He turns out really yellow. For some reason, I remember just looking at the reference photo, and it was tilted at an angle far away from me on the desk, so I couldn't get too caught up in the details. But I still remember it being yellow. Anyway, I guess that's neither here nor there. So I'm drawing Rick, and I love it, and I'm so happy, and I'm just having the time of my life drawing this. I'm specifically really excited to be doing the hair. I really, really liked how the girl's hair turned out, even though it was square. But I like how it turned out. All the lines and like the abstractness of it, maybe impressionist. I don't know terms for art. It wasn't realistic, and for some reason it worked, and I'm excited to try it again. I know that I could make it easier on myself to do really fine details on the eyes if I just cut the end of the stick into a point. But there's just something in me that says that that's morally wrong to do and I shouldn't do it. That it's like some kind of a crime. Walking Dead is in my top 20 favorite shows of all time. I don't know, it's something about post-apocalyptic shows just gets my eyes just like super wide and I'm just in it. You can't peel me away from the screen. I have to think about it. I have to immerse myself completely in the thought of what would happen if that really happened in real life. Would I want to hang out with these fellas? Would they want to hang out with me? How would I make myself presentable so that they would want me in their group? And how could I help the group situation with my dumb little sketchbooks? Those are my real thoughts. In reality, though, I would be the person who is killed off instantly, or I end up being one of the strongest, most unpredictable people on the team. The thing that's really funny to me whenever I try to draw a famous person is there's always a moment where I'm drawing them and they don't look like them, but they look like a different famous person. It's so odd. It happened with Joaquin Phoenix, and now it's happening here. He's starting to look like Mel Gibson. But this is when I start to notice, like, okay, something is odd. And then once I put down the black shirt and like get the darker tones going on, I realize, oh my gosh, he's so yellow. I notice. I actually notice in the moment, and I start layering on some darker shadows and I start layering in some pink. So it tones down. And honestly, if you're not looking at it side by side with the reference photo, I don't know that you could necessarily notice in the end. And I have to say that because when I finished this, I hold it up for my husband off camera, and he said, "Oh, that looks so cool. It's Rick Grimes." And I kind of paused for a minute to give him the chance to tell me how yellow it is. But he never says anything. But he took my silence, and instead he was like, "Oh my gosh, that is Rick, isn't it?" Wouldn't it be funny if he was like, "Is that supposed to be Mel Gibson?" Something happened in the process where his nose turns into a totally different nose, and I do attempt to fix it at the end, so stick around if you actually want to see that. But in the meantime, I decided to give him a green background because Walking Dead to me is all greenery and, you know, the most lush environment possible. But this green was a little too green, so I blended it out with a gray color instead of white to try to make it look a little murky green. It was a good choice. I'm glad I did that. Now it's time to try to fix the nose. I decide to use my fingernail and try to pick off the top layers of nose. Picking his nose here. To try to get the paint down. The very edge of his nose is in reflection, so I'm trying really hard to get all the color down without touching that reflection line so that I can use the light blue, light green color to do like the finishing touch on the reflection line. And these guys are all done. I'm so pleased with how they turned out. The texture of oil pastel is insane. I had so much fun learning about oil pastels today. So thank you for sticking around with me while we learn about oil pastels. And I'll see you in the next one. Toodaloo.